and welcome to round 13 here at GPDC. Murray Bartholdi in the booth, joined by Jacob Van Lunen. We are going to be watching, as we have been all day, some powerhouse teams at the end of this round. Both teams sitting at 10-2. One will be out of top four contention. Team of Brad Nelson, Brian Braun Martin Mueller versus Tomohiro Saito, Raf Levy, and Jeremy Dezani. Both teams, 2 losses, none to give. I'm going to start things off here with a Merfolk Trickster for Martin Mueller and a Vodalian Arcanist for Jeremy Dezani.
Lots of islands on this table.
Get-to Journey Mage here for Dezani. And since the Arcanist is a wizard, we are going to deal 2 to Mueller, who will drop down to 18. And we've seen the Arcanist more than I think people played it at the beginning of the format. We've seen it a lot this weekend. Have to be a little bit careful, as it can tap 4 mana for your instants and sorceries.
Yeah, I think the most common way in which it's forgotten about is the kicker on Fight with Fire, and you see a lot of people lose games like that.
Right, looks like a red-blue mirror here. Get-to Journey Mage getting in there along with the Arcanist.
And we've seen that exact play out over and over again for Dezani, but usually he has Naru in hand, and he completely blows his opponent out. This is the first time we've seen him not have Naru when making an attack like that and having his opponent block.
All right, let's play another Journey Mage here for Dezani. We'll ding Mueller again. Rampaging Cyclops to play for Mueller. There's a look at the big baddie on the right side of your screen. 4/4 for 4. Gets -2/-0 as long as 2 or more creatures are blocking it.
It makes sense. Like, you have to look back and forth. I mean, as a person with 2 eyes, I can look at one person and another person that's in a different place with each of my eyes.
Great point. All right, so this attack here with the Journey Mage, a little suspicious, no doubt. And sure enough, there we go. Naru Meha herself is coming onto the table, giving other wizards you control +1/+1, enabling the trade there. With the Cyclops, Fiery Intervention sends her packing, though, and Jeremy Dezani is left only with an Arcanist, 2 cards in hand, now 3 as he draws for turn. Divination, one of those cards in hand. Definitely one of the, a set's good when you can play Divination, and it just feels great.
Yeah, when you find yourself, aching about passing a Divination very early on in a draft pack, then it's a set you want to be drafting. And Martin's done a good job of staving off the aggression of Jeremy Dezani. We've watched Jeremy have a lot of success with this deck already today.
Right, Divination here for Dezani. He will draw 2. Geez, how many Journey Mages do you have? There's another one. So far they've done 6 to Martin Mueller. None of that damage attacking. None of that 6 anyway. All right, here's a Get-to Chronicler. We're going to get back a Fiery Intervention for Martin Mueller. One of my absolute favorite cards in the set.
Yeah, an excellent card, a great defensive creature early on if your opponent's trying to be aggressive, and once you get up to the later stages of the game, it becomes a nice little card advantage engine, and it combos really nicely with a lot of cards in the set also. Things like Soul Salvage give you a ton of inevitability against just about anybody.
Here's an opt from Dezani. Speaking of good things to do on turn 1. Not bad. All right, in comes the Journey Mage here for Dezani. Plays another land, taps 6. All right, another kick to Get-to Chronicler. We're going to get back a Divination. Yeah, Value Town.
Yeah, and that's a lot of card advantage there. And now Martin's in a pretty bad spot here because he's behind on cards, he's behind on the board, and he's behind on mana. So if Martin wins this one, it's probably going to have to be off of sheer card power level at this point.
All right, Fiery Intervention that he got back with the Chronicler pointed here at the Journey Mage. Not exactly the target you're hoping for that card.
I mean, he needs to do something on his turn, especially considering it's a sorcery speed card, and sometimes your best target just happens to be a 3/2.
think one of the reasons I love this Wizards deck so much is that the tempo is just so strong thanks to the Chronicler. Getting yourself, it tends to be fairly aggressive, but being able to just get your card draw spells back or your burn spells back feels great.
Yeah, it gives your deck a lot of inevitability. Many of your cards, things like Wizard's Lightning, can go to the face, and the fact that you can create a board presence and then get their blockers out of the way with things like Academy Journey Mage, poke in all of that damage, and then finish them off with some burn spells, it makes a deck like this really, really powerful.
Get to Lava Runner here after Divination for Jeremy. Taking a peek at Get to Lava Runner, just a little 1/2 for 1, but as long as there are 2 or more instant and or sorcerer cards in your graveyard, it gets +1/+0 and has haste.
And it's a card that is boosted in power pretty easily when you're playing these blue-red decks.
Yeah, not too hard.
And the haste on it is also pretty important considering the nature of these blue-red decks. Because it has haste, a lot of the time you're bouncing one of their blockers and playing it on the same turn and attacking them for an amount of damage that they were not expecting.
Keldon Raider here, and Martin Mueller will do some rummaging, discard, and draw. Last turn, Dazani turned all of his creatures sideways, dropping Mueller's life down to 7. So far, nobody's touched Dazani's. He's still at 20. Naban, Dean of Veneration here for Mueller. 2/1. Great in a Wizard deck to double your ETB triggered abilities.
Yeah, the card is very nice in Martin Mueller's deck. I believe he has 3 copies of Get to Chronicler to go along with it.
Oh, I love it. Merfolk Trickster here from Dazani will tap down the Chronicler at the end of Mueller's turn. That Merfolk Trickster, by the way, is also a wizard. So, it attends Tolarian Academy. In Bolus's clutches here for Dazani. Grabs the Keldon Raider, swings in. We have to force a chump there from Mueller to stay alive.
And it's almost too little too late at this point. Martin's going to have a really big, really powerful spell if he wants to get back into this one.
Blink of an eye here will deal with the clutches, get the Keldon Raider back. And we're able to play it. And rummage. All right, so we've got 2 blockers back. Life total at 3. Wizard's Lightning is exactly enough. Right to the face. Jeremy Dazani taking game 1 from Martin Mueller here in round number 13. Both of our teams here that we're watching at 10 and 2. A loss eliminates them from consideration for the top 4.
And these are 2 of the better teams in the room this weekend. I mean, you look at the left side of the screen. We have 2 people who are currently ranked in the top 25, and then you have Martin Mueller.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Okay, let's take a peek here on table B. BBD, playing in spot B, makes sense, versus Raphael Levy. Pegasus Courser and a Quende in play, which has been deeply frozen from Brian Bronduin. There's an Aven Sentry and a Davenant Trapper. Looks like BBD's had a bit of a bad day as his Lyra has been sealed away.
I think
Sad.
he may have sealed away Raph's
Oh,
Lyra.
indeed. Okay.
I don't know, though. It could be either.
Yeah, it could actually go either way. Maybe we'll take a peek at their lists here and see who actually has that card. Definitely one of the best ones to open. Absurdly powerful. I see a Time of Ice in Brian's hand. Playing 3 colors, a little Esper action there on the left side of the battlefield, but a lot going on for Raph Levy's team. Life totals 13 to 14. And it is time for some Time of Ice here. We're going to tap down the Aven Sentry in Chapter 1 here for BBD.
Yeah, Time of Ice. Another incredible tempo spell. This card is at its best in a deck that can put bodies on the table, and then it can use this to get blockers out of the way before returning them to the opponent's hand. especially strong in a blue-white deck that has an aggressive bent to it. Not quite as good as in Brian's deck, but still a very powerful card to buy him time so that he can play his best cards like Teferi.
Ooh, he has Teferi.
He does.
Excellent. Trapper and the Courser get in. Sarah Angel, not a bad follow-up play at all. Have we solved the mystery? Was it in fact Levy's Lyra?
It was.
Yeah, that makes sense based on the way the Seal Away is facing. So Brian Braun doing just a Time of Ice in play and a major army here from Levy. Here's Evera, Halcyon Witness for BBD. No mana left to activate the ability. You get to exchange your life total with her power. She has lifelink as well. It has lifelink? Not sure. It's an avatar. So it is a potential way to help BBD out.
It looks like Raph only has the card he drew for the turn, so he may not have an answer to this ever right now. And considering he's only attacking for 4, and that's a 4-power lifelinker, this could be exactly the kind of tool that Brian needed to get back into the game.
All right, here's a Danitha. It's going to trigger the Trapper.
And this is a really nice play here from... Oh, it's opponent controls.
Yeah,
okay.
you can't.
Yeah, would have been a really nice play there.
I see what you're trying to do, Raph, trying to tap down the Quende so it would bounce back to his hand when Chapter 3 triggers of Time of Ice. There's a look at Davenon Trapper. Whenever you cast a historic spell, tap target creature and opponent controls. Yeah, man, Raph's deck looks sick. Sarah Angel, Danitha, Quende, Lyra, 2 Pegasus Coursers at least. Sign me up.
Yeah, this deck does look quite sweet.
Time of Ice here. Chapter 3 will send a couple of creatures back to Raph's hand, including the Sarah Angel and the Aven Sentry. So just an Evera for BBD at the moment. Currently ranked number 15 in the world.
And considering Raph's hand, there's only really one unknown card. I would not be surprised if, and now even more so, if Brian went for the trade with Evera. And in trade, I mean trading his life total with Evera's power and toughness.
All right, so Evera's going to get in here. Yep, probably going to activate here the Dauntless Bodyguard protecting Evera. You can sacrifice the Bodyguard to give chosen creature indestructible until end of turn. Chosen creature you've chosen when you've played Dauntless Bodyguard, that is. Not quite that good.
And this is the card we just talked about in Factor Fiction section.
Yes.
The extra text there on Dauntless Bodyguard, not particularly relevant when you're playing against white-blue. The removal that they're playing is mostly bounce or something that might exile a creature. That ability much more relevant when you're playing against something like a red-black deck.
Sometimes it can be a little scary activating Evera's ability, swapping your life total and Evera's power. So BBD's life total would become 4. However, lifelink on Evera. But if Levy had some way to deal with Evera, like a Blessed Light, for example, then BBD has essentially just clocked himself for some damage. Okay, so there's a chump block from Levy with his Ophar Quende wall. And Ariel is going to come down here for Brian Braun doing 4/4 Vigilance. 2 and a white, you can create a knight. If you tap her, black and tap X, untap knights you control, destroy target creature with power X or less. A great card, but it's kind of slow.
Yeah, it is a little bit slow, but this format's a little bit slow. And this does provide a ton of inevitability. A great card when you're not facing off against flyers or if you have removal spells for your opponent's key flyers.
And BBD was able to bump his life total back up to 13 there with that Evera attack. I love that Ariel's like riding on a panther.
Yeah, there are a lot of people riding on a lot of strange animals in this set. I don't know if you've noticed that. And many of them aren't even using saddles. You see Keldon Raider? Keldon Raider is riding on his Kodo, and he doesn't even have a saddle on there.
Keldon Raider don't need no saddle.
Impressive.
Ariel taking precautions, though. I don't know if you want to ride a cat without a saddle. Jousting lance for Levy here.
Paying the appropriate cost for the jousting lance with the Danitha in play. Points to Levy for that. He may be the first person to do
remember that.
Yeah.
Jousting lance gives equipped creature +2/+0 as first strike as long as it's your turn. Okay, so we're going to attack with the Courser and the Trapper. And Danitha, it looks like. We've tapped down the Bodyguard.
So this is 4. That would be 8 total if I take it.
So I imagine the Trapper is
Trapper
flying.
is flying. Yep.
No loss. So you go to 18 and I go 4.
And the Sarah Angel that was recently bounced with Time of Ice comes back into play here for Raph. Back over to Brian. 4/4 Flying Vigilance reprint. Beautiful art.
And Brian, we've seen this before with his deck. He's losing to the flyers of his opponent. His removal doesn't seem that permanent, relying on a lot of bouncing cards like Time of Ice, and his deck isn't quite fast enough to close the game sometimes.
On Sarah's wings, though, gives him a flying creature and a life linker here on Ariel. And here's an attack with Evra and Ariel. No 4 mana to activate Evra. On Sarah's wings, just capable of huge life swings. And Raph is tapped out.
And this Ariel is now a very potent force.
A lot of life gain going on in this match. Brian Braunduin has managed to swing himself back from the brink several times already in this game.
Yeah, you often end up with a very long game of Magic when both players have large life linkers.
Okay, it looks like Levy here taking the damage. Was at 18, so does have some life to give. Back over to Levy's turn. Life total swap, BBD gains up to 14, Levy down to 9. No other players done with their game ones here in this match yet, other than Desani and Mueller that we watched. So things a bit slower on tables A and B.
Yeah, Desani's deck is designed to either win reasonably quickly or lose a very, very long game.
Yeah. Levy here doing some math. Aven Sentry still in hand. That was bounced back there with Time of Ice, and I think that's a Raph Capuchin in hand as well.
Yeah, Raph in an interesting situation here. He would love to be able to bluff an attack here, but considering the stage of the game, it's unlikely that Brian would fall for anything like that.
Right, we're going to consider moving this Jousting Lance around here. Onto the Sarah Angel. 6 power first striker in the air. BBD takes the damage and passes it back. Memorial to Glory. Ready to go for Levy if he chooses. Also a Raft to flash in. Ariel makes a knight.
Brian, if he wants to continue attacking, is going to need to find some sort of spell that's going to interact with this equipped Serra Angel right now. He does not want to trade this Ariel with the Serra Angel because right now a 5 power flying lifelinker is just so pivotal to his route to victory. And throughout this game, it seemed like Raf was ahead.
Yes.
And now it seems like Brian is perhaps turning the corner here.
Oh, Raf stopping BBD before combat.
Yeah, now BBD not attacking with the Ariel. Tells us he likely does not have a plan to deal with the equipped Serra Angel, which could potentially trade.
Raf flashes in here for Levy.
Oh, excuse me, that makes more sense. So Levy using his Trapper in conjunction with this Raf Capation, looking to tap down that Ariel. Brian with a decision here. Should he activate the Ariel? Does he want to use his mana in a different fashion?
We're going to see if he wants to activate here. All right, so we're going to be able to shoot down the Pegasus Courser here with a tap from Ariel and Dauntless Bodyguard. And Evra still attacks. Yeah, Ariel, what a great card to grind out some advantage if the game continues to go long like this.
And we just saw there its second ability come into use, and once this thing gets going, it really does just become, a machine gun. Takes down the opponent's creatures, makes knights of your own. It does it all.
All right, so it looks like Danitha jumped in front of Evra there. And Aven Sentry. Memorial to Glory was the land there for BBD. Back over to Raf. So yeah, let's take a peek at Ariel's abilities here. Black, tap X, untap knights you control, destroy target creature with power X or less.
Yeah, the second ability, very powerful in these types of mirror matches where both players are going to have a decent amount on the board, but only a few creatures matter.
Levy here equipping the Jousting Lance to Raf. Serra Angel attacks in as well.
This is a scary attack. BBD. No good blocks available.
Swinging in for 9. Would drop himself down to 3. See a Serra Disciple here at the ready for Raf Levy, as well as that Aven Sentry we know is in his hand. And we're going to play them both out, and Raf Levy is out of cards. Back over to Brian Braun-Duin, whose life total is currently at 3. A couple of ways to gain life, though, on the board. Evra, lifelinker. Ariel on Serra's wings, giving her lifelink.
Yeah, and with Raf tapped out, this it's a very clean attack, something one would be happy to do. Brian potentially gaining a bunch of life, going back up to 12 after this turn.
Head in hands here for Raph as he tries to decide what to do. This game kind of slipped away from him a little bit. He was well in control when we joined earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, when we came into this game, it looked like Raph was in a pretty dominating position. He had his Lyra dealt with, but he still had an army of flyers. He was applying good pressure. And then Brian played a few really large lifelinkers. First Evra, then Ariel with the Ansara's Wings. And he's been able to just work his life total up, stay just out of range of lethal, and he bought himself enough time to set this up with that Time of Ice you see in his graveyard.
Okay, Aven Sentry number 2 here for Brian. I mean, that Dauntless Bodyguard, we were kind of dissing it a little bit, but it's doing some work paired with Evra.
Especially now, the life totals as they are. And again, this is not a matchup where one might expect the Dauntless Bodyguard to shine. It's a card that really excels against red and black decks.
Deep freeze here on Ariel. Turning it into an 0-4 defending wall. Base power and toughness. So it's actually going to retain the +1/+1 from Ansara's Wings.
Yeah, will not be able to attack, however.
No.
So it'll just be a defender, but it will have all of the Ansara's Wings abilities. Or, oh no, it will... It's a good question.
It'll
the
lose
layering?
Yeah, this is a layering
rule?
situation
Yeah.
here, I
So
believe.
it'll lose these abilities.
Just a 1/5. Right, so Sarah Angel was able to get a hit in there, passing the turn right back over to Brian Braun-Duin. All right, well, we have a result from Table C. Jeremy Dazani, 2-0 over Martin Mueller, and Tomohiro Saito, 1 game up over Brad Nelson. Once again, the attack from Evra here. We're going to make a couple of soldier tokens with Memorial to Glory from Levy.
Levy, not out of the game just yet. A ton more play happening here. He still has, Sarah Angel, which seems like it is for the most part unanswered, unless BBD wants to double block and lose both of his Aven Sentries.
Coldwater Snapper here for BBD. We're going to move this Jousting Lance around. Everyone's borrowing this lance in this game.
They're running a relay with it.
All right, Sarah Angel swinging in 4/6, half of Brian's life total, and Davnant Trapper number 2. And we talked about this yesterday. Once these things come out in multiples, they can be very, very scary.
Yeah, playing a historic card and getting to tap down 2 of your opponent's creatures when you have advantage on the board allows you to end games pretty quickly. That's one of the more exciting parts about Dominaria Limited also, is that even though the games go longer and the games are more controlling, once you find yourself in the driver's seat, once you've turned the corner, you have the tools you need to close that door entirely on your opponent.
All right, Turtle getting some beats in here. Evra, as she has been doing this entire game, heads to the red zone as well. Soldier jumping in front of the Turtle. Levy sort of separating his creatures into flyers and not flyers right now. The Trapper will jump in front of Evra, Soldier in front of the Turtle. This
Yeah.
one, very important game for Brian Braun-Duin to win, as his team currently has 0 wins in their column. Already a match win for Dazani. Quende here from Brian Braun-Duin.
Yeah, Saito up a game on Brad already here. This is not where BBD wants to be, even though he's winning this game handily. His teammates both falling behind.
Raf Levy is scooping up his cards here. Brian Braun-Duin managing a win. First W in that column there for the team on the left. But their work cut out for them. As we move forward, Tomohiro Saito up a game over Brad Nelson. Jeremy Dazani 2-0 over Martin Mueller, giving his team one of the needed 2 match wins. Here in round 13, only one more round of Swiss to go after this. Let's check in with Brad Nelson and Tomohiro Saito up on table A. Brad Nelson playing black, green, splashing red, good stuff. Icy Manipulator there for Saito. Also on black-green, but in this case he's got a little bit of blue. A Baloth Gorger in play. There's a Knight of Malice. Yavimaya Sapherd as well. Hardic Wanderer. Thallid Omnivore. Pair of them, actually, for Brad Nelson.
When you see an island in a green-black deck, what card do you think of most? What do you expect to see?
Tatyova.
Yeah, same.
All right, we're going to ice down that Hardic Wanderer with the Icy Manipulator. And in come the Thallid Omnivores for Nelson.
And, you know, this has been a talking point all weekend, just how strong Thallid Omnivore has been in this sealed environment. And to be honest, I've been super impressed with it in draft also. I think this is a card that I initially was, taking as, a hill giant with an upside, and now I recognize that this is really one of the best 4-drops you can have in your deck.
I agree. Just proven itself to be excellent so far this weekend.
I might be taking them over Baloth Gorgers going forward. I'm a crazy person.
I mean, it's a must-kill, right? You can't just leave it there, especially if the game goes longer like it has been in these team sealed matches. You just get more mana, more saplings available for it to eat. So here we see a triple block from Saito on this Omnivore. Ancient Animus here. We're going to fight the Wanderer and the Baloth. Then the Omnivore is going to have some lunch there. Saproling. Wow, Saito losing 3 creatures in that exchange. That was pretty brutal.
And a nice follow-up there, too, from Brad.
Another
really
Baloth Gorger.
Yeah, really impressive board happening here.
Grow from the Ashes here for Saito. We'll find him. Oh, a 4th color. A Plains.
Yeah, Saito splashing white for a pair of Blessed Light.
I like how he's got the 1 land sitting over with the Icy Manipulator. All right, so in ships the team for Brad Nelson.
Yeah, all of Saito's mana tapped. Saito really, really far behind on this board.
All right, Saproling is going to block Saproling.
I imagine Brad will just allow those to trade.
All right, so all that Saito has left is an Icy Manipulator.
4 very large bodies on the other side of the table.
And he is just going to scoop them up. He saw the writing on the wall. Brad Nelson there tying things up with Tomohiro Saito here in round 13. A much-needed win for Nelson's team, who is behind a match win to Jeremy Dazani there on table C versus Martin Mueller. Martin, as you can see, has kind of shifted over. Dazani has as well to help out his teammates as they make their decisions in their games.
This is kind of the joy of team tournaments, is we also get to watch games that are being played about as perfectly as a game could be played when you watch these highest level teams play.
All right, let's head back to Table B. Brian Bronduin, Raph Levy check in on things here. Evra Halcyon Witness, kind of an all-star from last game. Coldwater Snapper already in play for BBD. Mesa Unicorn has been sealed away. Danitha in play for Raph.
And BBD seems to have done a very good job of establishing control in this game earlier now. And we've already seen these two decks play out, and I think that BBD has a much better endgame with cards like Teferi and Evra and a lot of good smart removal to deal with the things that Raph is going to try to win with, like Lyra or Sarah Angel.
Time of Ice here from Raph. We'll tap down Evra. Coldwater Snapper. Can't tap a snap, as they say.
They're turtles.
Don't want to get bit.
Yeah.
Coldwater Snapper looking great here every time I've seen it. I just love it. And here we go. We are doing it. Wings on a turtle. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Bronduin is setting his turtle to the air with On Sarah's wings.
This is one of the best things you can do in this limited environment.
I love it.
We have a 5/6 hexproof flying vigilance lifelinker now on Brian's side of the table. I have only managed to assemble the Sarah winged turtle twice.
Oh, it's so good.
I've lost both of those games.
Wait, you lost when you winged your turtle?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, well, here's Lyra, Dawnbringer for Raph Levy. And I also see a Gideon's Reproach in hand. But what can you do? Lyra does have first strike.
The turtle still happily able to attack into this board right now.
I also think I see a deep freeze in Levy's hand too. Oof.
Yeah, both these players seem to have pretty good decks.
If you saw a turtle flying through the air and beautiful stained glass wings, you would think it was pretty legendary.
I definitely would.
All right, here we see Seal Away used in conjunction with Time of Ice to seal away Evra.
This turtle, it's just so big. It's got so many abilities.
I love this turtle. Davnon Trapper here for Levy. It's just holding everything off. Oh, and it can attack. Evra number 2. Awesome. BBD. There's a deep freeze, though. That was in Levy's hand, turning Evra into an 0-4 wall with Defender. All right, so some answers from Levy, but it's not many answers for that turtle. We do know Levy has a Sarah Angel, though, so there's, like a Temple Block or something. He has other flyers.
Yeah, I think
Benalish Marshall.
That's a plan that it will work. I mean, the Lyra Dawnbringer will become a 6-power flyer. It's going to end up beating this Coldwater Snapper in a fight. Shows you just how powerful Lyra is.
Oh, your 5/5 flying first strike lifelinker wasn't quite good enough? How about a 6/6?
Set up really well there. Brian, with his Wombo combo together.
Okay, so this game's pretty great, but we are going over to Table A right now, actually, as this is a deciding game because they're in Game 3. So if Saito wins this, It is lights out for Nelson Bronduin and Martin Mueller. Song of Fraley's already on chapter 2 here for Saito. We just have it Grow from the Ashes from Brad Nelson. Sapperling Migration gave Saito a couple of sapperlings here.
Song of Fraley's is pretty good.
Okay, so a Thalid Omnivore here for Saito gets in with a sapperling. Those sapperlings are going to be a lot bigger next turn.
Saito is, however, missing land drops. So even though he does have this exceptionally powerful enchantment, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a surefire chance to win this game.
All right, here we go. Chapter 3 gives counters to everything here for Saito. It's a free roll attack. So you're indestructible. Brad Nelson just will block 1. No 4th land drop for Saito yet. Pass the turn back over to Nelson. Okay, Thalid Omnivore of his own. Nelson down to 11. Saito still at 20. Omnivore swings in here.
And just the threat of activation of this Omnivore essentially making it an unblockable 4/4 here. And if Brad just blocks with a Gorger, he'll essentially be trading that Gorger for a Sapperling.
Right.
And Saito will gain 2 life in the process. If he blocks with his Gorger and his Omnivore, Saito can simply sacrifice both of his creatures.
You have my Sapphire here for Saito. After these attacks, okay, land number 5 here for Nelson. Has all 3 colors of his mana. We're going to play Sapperling Migration for 2. The Omnivore is going to immediately eat 1. To make it huge, an Ancient Animus here will fight. And Saito is tapped out, so he loses his Omnivore.
And that's exactly what Brad needed to do if he wanted to deal with Tamaharo's board. That Omnivore had gotten kind of out of hand. And Brad recognized it as the most important threat, and he jumped through a bunch of hoops to make sure it wasn't going to beat him alone.
There's Icy Manipulator from Saito.
And again, Saito stuck on 4 lands here. That could have quite a negative effect on this Icy Manipulator's ability to be activated on each turn.
Baloth Gorger swinging in here for Nelson.
And I don't think I would be surprised if Tamaharo just took this damage.
No black mana, interestingly enough, for Saito was able to play that Omnivore off of the Song of Fraley's.
Yeah, Saito's deck, not the best mana in the universe. A lot of removal.
Splashing a couple of Blessed Lights. That's why you see that Plains in there. All right, so he's going to take it. Down to 16. And another Baloth Gorger here for Nelson.
Just a parade of 4/4s. They're all matching up well.
All right, Saito just passed the turn back. Lines up a forest under the Icy Manipulator. I wonder if you could ever do that to kind of fake out your opponent.
I'm sure you can.
But Icy's so good. When are you not going to use it? All right, Baloth Gorger getting tapped down here. Windgrace Acolyte for Nelson, and this is great because he gets to gain 3 life. Mills himself for 3 lands into the bin. Nice. Couldn't have asked for better than that.
That's exactly what he wants. Tamaharo still with no black mana. We know, because we have deck list here, that his deck is a green-black deck with a few splashes, but still unable to find that swamp. A lot of cards stranded in Saito's hand here.
All right, no play. Was able to find a 5th land, but like you said, no black mana. Over to Nelson. We're going to Icy Manipulator down a Baloth Gorger. Another one ready to attack. Omnivore, Windgrace, Acolyte, and a Saproling at the ready here for Brad. All right, an update here. Very importantly, Brian Braun-Duin won his match over Raph Levy, so this is our deciding game here. It all comes down to this. These teams fighting for their life here to make it into our top 4. 3 losses will not get you in.
I feel like this has happened time and time again throughout this weekend, where every single match we watch comes down to a single game. And it's always some tight game where both players have a million things on the board. Saito, a nice block there, decides to block with 3 2/2s as opposed to 2 on that 4/4. Doing so that if Brad has an instant speed removal spell, he can't simply kill one of those blockers and gain a pretty nice advantage there.
All right, so Thallid Omnivore number 2 here for Brad Nelson. We're just going to play a giant worm here for Saito. Life total 12-12.
Saito's still unable to find that crucial black mana.
Nelson here kind of considering what Saito's going to do on his turn. Also did tap out, by the way, to play that worm.
Yes, that means Icy Manipulator not a factor this turn right now.
Four cards in hand left for Saito. Nelson conferring with teammates here.
It looks like Nelson has 5 in hand. Both players without perfect mana. Brad stuck on 5. Saito. And here, no black mana. Needs to find that.
Saproling Migration. Very bad news here for Saito, as those Thallid Omnivores now free to strike in 3 mana available for the sacrifice. And it will gain Nelson life as well. Windgrace Acolyte also enters the red zone.
Yeah, and that extra life, super important in a racing situation, which comes up pretty often in these types of matchups. Also, just simply the ability to threaten to activate those Omnivores means that 7/6 on the other side of the table isn't quite as scary as it once might have been.
Saito lining up blocks Primordial Worm on a Thallid Omnivore. Looking like a double block here. Well, he takes it back. This can get this is where team tournaments can get very, very tricky. It's nice to have your teammates' input, but sometimes when you're getting really complicated decisions made, it can be tough when you've got 2 other people giving you their input. So we're going to sacrifice all 3. 2 to 1 Thallid Omnivore and a 1 to the other.
Yeah, Brad jumping all the way back up to 18 from that attack.
Wow. Thallid Omnivore, OP. Worm down, Sapper down, Saproling down for Saito.
We have 3 threats on the battlefield now for Nelson.
Oh, there's the swamp. Is it too little, too late?
Well, that Icy Manipulator is definitely going to help. Saito can keep one of those attackers out of the way and start progressing his own board state.
Deathbloom Thallid here, the play for Saito once he found that crucial black mana, which he'd been missing all game. This is the deciding game of this match. Yavimaya Sop Herd for Nelson. Icy Manipulator here. Tapping down the Gorger. in swings the Omnivore and the Acolyte. We are going to sacrifice a Saproling here to pump up the Omnivore, gain Brad more life. Deathbloom Thald leaves behind a Saproling of its own.
Yeah, now Brad was able to get him for 7 there, even through that Icy Manipulator. Or I'm sorry, get him for 4 there, even through the Icy Manipulator. His board continues to grow. Saito only with that 1 black mana and a hand full of black cards, having his mana just kind of choked throughout the entirety of this game.
Trying to fight back, do anything he can to get himself back into this game, but his mana troubles, as you mentioned, just brutal so far in this match. Forest here for Saito.
And all of those lands that aren't swamps, each of those additional draws, they're almost dead cards because we see every single card in his hand happens to be black right now. And Saito had an incredible start this game. He had one of those starts where you play Saproling Migration into a Song of Freyalise, which is often considered somewhat unbeatable. Luckily for Brad, Saito was unable to find any more black mana for a very long time.
Thallid Omnivore of his own here for Saito, who just got a slow play warning, by the way. So he's being encouraged to hurry up from a judge. As you can see, our clock tick down to 0. Not 100% sure if we are in turns just yet. We do have a separate clock running in the feature match area from our main match clock.
So this is turn 1.
All right, so this is turn 1. We are in turns here. Brad Nelson.
And Brad now has 3 turns to try to win this game. Saito
well, hold up.
only
Yeah,
has
they actually
2.
have 7 because of the slow play warning for Saito.
Oh, okay. So he has 4 more turns, which KC could have an attempt to win this game. Saito has 3 more turns.
That Icy Manipulator tapping down the Windgraced Acolyte. These teams don't want to draw here.
It'd be very bad, eliminating 2 of the top teams left in the tournament from top 4 contention in one fell swoop. Very tense here.
Oh, yeah. Can only imagine the feature match area mere feet away from us. How tense that must be right now. Round 14 is our final round of Swiss. Both of these teams so close to making the cut for the top 4. Ancient Animus here. Brad Nelson, Baloth Gorger on the Saproling, forcing the issue here from Saito. All right, so Saito sacrifices in response, pumps up the Thallid, gains some life. Ancient Animus, the 3rd one played this game here from Nelson. And there is the handshake. Brad Nelson, Brian Braun-Duin, and Martin Mueller advance to 11-2, knocking Saito, Levy, and Dazani out of the tournament here in round 13. Wow, what a game. That was tense. Saito had mana issues all the way through the game. Might have been his demise there. But they had to fight back as Jeremy Dazani defeated Martin Mueller pretty quickly in this game. So Brian Braun-Duin able to kind of set the stage for a comeback there. So that was pretty cool stuff to watch.
Yeah, Jeremy Dazani's Wizard deck today is one of the
Excellent.
best decks I've seen in this limited format, period. And in that game 3, that's the game that decided whether or not one of those players would be eliminated from contention, or one of those teams would be eliminated from contention in the top 4 of this Grand Prix. And these are 2 of the best possible teams. Early turns of the game, Saito has Song of Freyalise with Saproling Migration. We're expecting this game to just be a complete blowout in one direction. And then he struggles with mana a little bit in that mid-game. Brad is able to take advantage of that, has his back against the wall, and then starts just getting in and is able to win in extra turns. skin of their teeth. Incredible
Wow.
stuff.
Excellent magic all weekend long, and we have one round of Swiss left for you before our cut to top 4, and it's coming up right after these messages.